Hi and welcome to On the Racing Line, the Formula One podcast by fans, for fans. We are at the mid-season break, the summer break over there. It is freezing where we are, but we've seen what is really a season so far of two halves. We've seen a season of a dominant Red Bull, and then we've seen a season of everybody else having a crack, and the season's come alive. We've been to Spa over the weekend, and we're going to talk all about those things. Tristan Pocock, how are you, mate? How did you enjoy the race?
Oh, it was very, very good. How did you enjoy it? You're right, it's freezing here. Like, it's cold.
Yeah, last week we seemed to get through fine, and it seems to be colder again today.
You generally do a bit of prep work in the studio with the heater, but you have not done that. That's why I've got you dry knitted blanket.
Yeah.
I'm liking it.
Yeah, real grandpa style.
Real grandpa style. Well, we are old now, so...
How good's Spa when there's a race like that going on?
How good's Spa just in general?
Spa in general is fantastic.
Isn't
if you've got a dominant car, it's not as fantastic. Like Max has ruined Spa a couple of times with his dominance and his impressiveness and Red Bull's glory. However, if you've got a race like that, it is something else. And we saw a good old-fashioned Formula One race, I thought. It was a really, really solid, fun race to go and watch.
That was good.
There was strategy, there was some overtakes, there was all sorts of things.
The overtakes weren't as thrilling, I thought. Like,
yeah,
it's hard to have an excitement sort of feel around the overtakes at Spa, although there are a lot of them.
Yep.
It's generally
But the reduced DRS, I thought, was actually perfect.
I didn't really notice it too much.
Well, we didn't see the overtakes happen straight away. There was quite often there was like a car following another car for quite some time. It wasn't an absolute yep, you're going to get him. And so I thought they nailed that one. What was your race ranking?
Just sort of. I'm just going to go with a 7 for this one.
Only a 7?
It certainly didn't reach the heights of what we've had for probably the last month. There was a lot going on.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm full 8.
You're full 8. Okay, full 8. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. 7's
I thought it was a ripper. There was enough drama going on throughout the race. I didn't know who was going to win the race at any stage.
Certainly at no stage did I think George was going to win at all whatsoever.
Well, he didn't.
Yeah, well, I mean,
win. But I'm with you. I'm with you. Like, that wasn't something I was considering for quite some time.
Yeah.
But it was a beauty. And Lewis, he looked like he was going to be the man for the job, but knowing the McLarens, it was just it was a real sort of weird, uneasy feel around Mercedes, wasn't it? Did you just pick up on that? Like, Lewis wasn't happy, George is obviously not happy. Toto looked very sheepish. Yeah, well, they just got disqualified, but then they couldn't be completely upset because then they got disqualified to then win the race still.
Yeah.
It was, so, I can understand that.
So that was weird.
Yeah, hard one to celebrate when one of your boys gets disqualified.
That's very true.
So, but it was, I really enjoyed it. Who's got the pace is the other question I'd like to ask at the top of the episode.
Who's got the pace?
Unless Red Bull were in full domination, which they are no longer. However, we saw Red Bull back into it a bit, didn't we? But the weather certainly helped them.
Absolutely, it did, just even out the playing field.
Yeah, and I think the fact that McLaren went for the drier setup,
I
think supported Red Bull in looking more dominant in the wet.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But who's got the pace at the moment? It's McLaren, and then who?
It's McLaren, and then what did I say last week?
You said McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull,
Ferrari, but then you said if it was just Max, it was McLaren, Max, Mercedes.
Yes.
So I think I'll just stick with that order. I want to be controversial early on.
Yep. It's tight.
Yeah.
Like McLaren probably are the fastest team, and they're beginning to behave like the fastest team.
Yes.
However, they're not quite nailing a few things, and I'm not sure that they're too much to blame for what went on over the weekend.
I don't either. I
thought the wet weather cost them more than they were expecting.
Conspiracy theorists are certainly out in force, but no, I kind of agree with you.
Got all the goodies coming up tonight. Plenty of news to talk about. Wowee, we've got some news to talk about. And I'm really, really looking forward to diving into that one. F1.5.
Yep.
And we've got fantasy coming up. I have not looked at fantasy. I don't know where I'm at with fantasy.
I have looked at fantasy. Have I looked at fantasy? I can't remember.
Okay.
I can't remember.
You're looking a little flustered now.
I'm gonna have a look.
before we get into that, we have got an opening question, and we've got a couple of great opening questions. There was one about the Olympics from Kingsley, which I really wanted to get into.
We talked about that. I haven't been watching the Olympics.
But Sam's gotten, well, sort of around that, actually. But Sam's gotten right into it, and he's delivered an audio question. Audio question will pretty much always trump just a written question. Because it means I don't have to read it out. It's a long one.
Okay.
We might do it in parts, we'll see.
Strap yourself in.
Hey guys, Sam here from Through an Amateur's Eyes and Emerald Jaeger Homebrews. So last week it seemed like I touched on a few nerves by having my 3 and 2 and 1 apparently ranked the wrong way, but those are my opinions, and as you guys said, as long as we justify them, they're more valid than just giving them points and nothing else.
Do we say that to him?
Well, I wonder, but we'll probably have to go back through, but was he one that gave a 3, 2 and 3?
There was a lot last week who didn't recognise the correct driver.
It was nearly the last episode of Fan Frenzy, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
It was.
And I think Sam might have made it worse by doing like a 3-2-3 setup for his points.
I'll go back and have a look throughout the episode, see if I can find it. We'll mention it in Fan Frenzy. Anyway, continue.
It also seemed that Tristan touched a little bit of a nerve on Roger with that whole thing about Wolverine. Does Roger not like Hugh Jackman? Anyway.
I can't remember what I talked about there with that.
So that was midway through an episode. You did the thing that I don't like.
Oh, I showed you something.
Yeah, so we were mid-conversation and then you showed a picture, which like, at some stage I'm hoping you'll understand that the audience isn't going to see this picture at the same time.
But it's not for the audience.
Well, it was, this is, isn't it? Yeah, podcast world, our listeners. Yeah, so in answer to that part, Hugh Jackman's fine. The car actually looked awesome.
Yes. It was ridiculous.
I did say that.
Did you?
I'm sure it looks awesome, but remember. I'm not that interested while our audience can't see. So no, it was just that it was a visual medium on an audio podcast.
Yeah,
Sam?
that's one of your bugbears.
It is
life, isn't it?
It is.
It is. Yes.
So this week, I'd like to hear your unpopular/controversial opinions about one thing in general day-to-day life, and one controversial or unpopular opinion about F1 things. And if you want to end on a popular/upbeat opinion, then go right ahead. Just so we start off the podcast nice and cheery. So my unpopular opinion/controversial point is that I think chocolate ice cream, plain old chocolate ice cream, is overrated. I would rather take choc chip peppermint over it. Give me vanilla any day, just not plain old chocolate ice cream. It's too overrated.
Hey guys, oh no, I've just lost the spot. Just on that one quickly.
Yep.
Thoughts?
That's ridiculous. Like, even to like compare it to vanilla, like vanilla is not anything. Vanilla's not anything. Like chocolate is something. Vanilla is not anything. Vanilla is what you have when there's nothing left. Like we have Neapolitan ice cream. Like, right, and for those overseas listening, like that's your chocolate, your strawberry, and vanilla. Now, when you grow up, there's two ways to eat vanilla. There's two ways to eat Neapolitan. It's either the horizontal scoop across and you get all three, or you do what I did when you're growing up. You eat all the chocolate first, you eat the strawberry next because that's the flavour, and then Dad gets the vanilla because no one wants it. And that's what Dad gets. And that's what my dad got. And he had like a bit of a love. How can you... No.
I'm not sure he's eating the right chocolate ice cream. Though.
I think he's eating the right ice cream.
If he's eating plain old chocolate ice cream, you're not eating the right ice cream.
I'll tell you what, Sam, I have a 3-year-old, and if you want to jump in the car and go through the McDonald's drive-through with him and offer him the choice of vanilla and chocolate, if you are brave enough to hand him a vanilla, just a plain vanilla, well, good luck to you, because my money goes on him.
It's very Sam, this question.
Yeah.
Now, I think I've lost the spot now.
Okay, all right. This is...
chocolate ice cream.
All right,
there
it is. Yep, all right.
I would rather take...
I do like a peppermint.
Chip
no.
Peppermint over it.
It's like brushing your teeth.
Nice.
No,
that's nice.
I like rum and raisin.
Chocolate ice cream.
Yep.
It's too overrated. My F1 adjacent controversial opinion is that Drive to Survive is no longer relevant. It was formerly a great series about the struggles of running a Formula One team and what it means to be an athlete on the pinnacle of motorsport. these days it's just a recap of all the drama that happened last year before we get swinging into testing in Bahrain.
Thoughts on that?
I don't hate that as a comment.
No, I think that's quite a popular comment.
It is quite a popular comment.
So you might have missed the mark there, because I haven't watched the last however many series
I've
of
watched
Drives
it,
as
but
Live,
I haven't found myself absolutely glued to it.
Yep.
It's almost like it's become a bit of a replacement for... Do you remember the old DVDs that you used to get of the season reviews, which I don't even know if you can get that anymore, can you?
No, probably
It's sort of almost like that. It's a bit of a recap of the season review. So, yeah, I can't...
But it's a dramatised, so they choose the things, it's a dramatised one. Sam goes on to talk about the fact that he really likes the fact... he liked it when they were telling the stories of the teams, all the drivers.
Yeah.
And I think he's right. I think they used to tell those stories really, really well. I'm not sure they're telling storytelling quite as much and just getting sucked into trying to find drama and things that aren't. But in saying that, I did watch a couple of episodes, but it's just, for me, I'll never be able to fully care about it because it's too late. I've moved on from that season, and I'm too invested in the season that is. And that's when it comes out, and so, I'm with Sam on that one. It's, for me, it's no good. I'm sure it's still polls really high, and I'm sure the ratings are still really high, but yeah, for me, it's done. His last one is he wanted a positive spin, and he said it's probably one of the best seasons since Before the Race Winners for a long, long time.
Okay.
Better than 2021, and is it better than 2021? That was the year of the Max and Hamilton?
No.
That was gripping for a different reason. This one's been brilliant, because we've seen all these different race winners, but 2021 was one for the ages. Like, to come down to that last lap and to see the season seesaw throughout.
The ongoing back and forth, and back and forth, and back and forth.
But I'm with you. It is Formula One is better for having more teams winning. I'm with you on that one, absolutely. Sam. But I think 2021 is going to go down in history as one of the all-time greats. I'm not sure this one quite will. No. Mind you, we might be going too early. We'll talk about that.
Maybe.
It certainly seems open this season. It certainly does seem open, more open than what we probably expected it ever would. But, yeah. So, go on. What's your unpopular opinion? What's something that you believe that you don't think is a popular opinion?
Don't think it's a popular opinion.
I've got one.
Okay, go for it.
I've got one. I've got a couple.
All right.
You'd never guess with me a couple.
All right.
I don't like the action hero movies.
Oh.
I just don't find them that interesting.
Oh, okay.
So, I've never seen Transformers, the Wolverines.
Yep.
I don't know, what are all those ones?
The
Marvels.
What's
the other one? DC.
DC, I like DC.
Yeah, so I don't watch any of those ones either.
Yep.
So, yeah. Yep. So that's my unpopular opinion. But I don't find them that interesting.
Yep.
But I know that they're really well made, but just not for me.
Okay.
Got one?
Just unpopular opinion. Just in general everyday life, is it? I really believe that, like, sauce. When you buy sauce from the supermarket,
tomato sauce,
barbecue sauce. It lives in the pantry. It doesn't live in the fridge. Any sort of condiment that you buy from the supermarket.
Oh, so that's a bit of a get out. That's a 50-50 one.
No, well, where you buy it from is where it lives. So, like, Vegemite doesn't live in the fridge. It lives in the pantry.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
that's just my general, like...
We're the same.
Chocolate's probably the exception of that. Block chocolate needs to go in the fridge.
That's a weird thing to do.
Nah, it has to be in the fridge. It can't be...
So hard. You got one about Formula One?
One about Formula One, unpopular opinion. I mean, I could really
It's so hard for us because we talk Formula One.
I know all the time. I mean, I could really just go down the line of sprints should be scrapped, I think, But then I think there'd be a lot of people...
I think that's a 50-50 again.
It's a bit of 50-50 one there. Unpopular opinion... I don't know, sprints. There's so much I love about it.
For me, probably my most unpopular opinion would be is I'm happy to change the qualifying format.
Yeah.
I think people love the qualifying format, but once again, I think it could still be a quarter of the population thinks the same way as I do.
Maybe,
I don't mind the idea of having different qualifying formats. I don't need the same one. Sometimes it's great. I love the idea of the one lap shootout. For all the variabilities involved. But, so for me, that's probably mine. But, it's a bit tricky because everyone generally knows our opinions, don't they?
Yeah, like that's what we do. We literally buy equipment to tell people our opinions.
You got any positive takes? It wasn't that negative, was it? So
no, not really. Not really. Positive takes on Formula
Spa's great.
Spa is great. It's picturesque, isn't it? Picturesque. I was talking to a colleague this morning and he was like, it's always a day behind. Like, it's like he watches qualifying Sunday, and then he comes in Monday morning. I got 2 friends at work. One that comes in is like, "Oh my God, did you see that?"
Yes.
And then I've got another one that's like, "I've just finished qualifying.
Yeah.
How was the race?
Yeah.
Don't tell me the result." I'm like, "Mate, it's 2:00 Monday.
Yep.
If you're not on it by now,
how are you avoiding
spoiler
this
alert? What are you doing to actively spoiler alert?" Because Saturday morning, I'll turn my phone off to watch quali if I miss quali live, which is very rarely. But then I was thinking, like, do I have to go the entirety of Monday? Like,
I actually had my post race ruined by the fact that when I got up Monday morning at 4:45, when I get up to watch a race, an alert came on my phone from Formula 1, which is supposed to be turned off.
You got to turn your mobile data off.
No. But like, I've got it so that you don't get the spoilers.
Yep.
Comes up, breaking news: Russell disqualified. I was like, wow, far out, man. I need to go and find out what's going on there.
I'm not a post-race watcher, but even I went to bed and I'm like, well, that's it. They hadn't even been talking about it.
Yeah.
And then I woke up and I was like, what?
Yeah, so I had the word that Russell's been disqualified, but I didn't know where he finished because it was just like for some reason my eye caught to it and read it quick enough that I couldn't look away.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know where he finished. And so when I was like, he starts at 7th, like, this is going to be like a midfield disqualification. That's fine. And then he's getting close to the win, and getting close to the win. And I said, oh my God, this is actually important.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
And I have a friend who was a George Russell diehard, and he's like, oh my God. And I'm like, no.
So Spa, it
1.5 kilograms.
Spa brought out the qualifying, didn't it? So
it did.
We saw the variable weather come out, and
as we do,
it's one of those things where the races that just don't necessarily need it bring it out sometimes, and sometimes we're crying out for weather, and we want to go to places that are going to bring up weather. But I felt like this weekend it was like, I really want to see the actual pecking order of these cars around this track in the dry, because if anywhere's going to give you a really good indication as to who's got some really great speed, it's Spa and teams around Spa.
Absolutely.
And so, I was like, I was looking forward to seeing qualifying and then the race, but in qualifying we got a fantastic qualifying session because of the wet.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily a dry, wet sort of situation.
No.
It was wet, slightly dried, and then wet, but it was never this point where the track seemed to fall away from them, but the track didn't necessarily improve too much. So it was like this constant wetness that meant that it was almost like a dry session just without the grip, because it wasn't like, you've missed your time now to get out onto those tyres. And so,
very true.
Yeah, no, it was a really enjoyable qualifying session. After I've just said that's what I'd change. It was a really enjoyable qualifying session, and it set us up for a race that I was really, really intrigued to go and watch.
Yep.
We saw a front row consisting of, who was on the front row after I said all that? Max got the pole position, didn't he? But
Max got pole, but then obviously the 10
penalty for
engine. So then that promoted
Actually, who do you owe an apology for?
Who do I owe an apology for?
Yeah, you said...
What did I say?
Only a few episodes ago. There is no way that Max is needing engine penalties. I haven't heard anything about this.
Well, I hadn't heard anything about it. It's new to me, so no apologies.
But he did. Did you notice that?
Obviously.
First thing I was like, Tristan, you owe... I think it was Sam you owe apology to.
Jeepers.
So Max's penalty meant that he was starting in 11th, which pushed Leclerc onto the front row, which was really interesting. It was an interesting setup, and I don't think anyone believed he was going to stay there, but it was an intrigue that we were keen on.
Yes, we were.
And Ferrari have this habit of coming good in seasons. Remember last year they came good for Monza.
Well, I don't know if they've come
No, but just hear me out. But they came good at Monza, so I was like, oh, you know what?
They have
it's about this time of year that they start to find some form again. And so we saw that last year where they were like, oh, that was a Monza result. Oh, no, it wasn't. Because then they followed it up, and they followed it up, and they followed it up. And then they sort of got found out eventually. But so I was like, oh, is this going to be one of these moments? We saw Hamilton, I think, qualify third, so into second.
Third into second.
And then we had the McLarens And so it was set up really, really well for a ring-ding battle. I think it was. Oh, and Perez was the other interesting factor in qualifying, because Perez started third, didn't he? He started second, I think.
He started second and then went all the way back to what he finished. I think it was 8th and then promoted to 7th.
But so then there was that intrigue around: is Perez going to be able to pull it off now? Has he got his act back together? And so, I was super excited for the race, and I thought it delivered really well. Once again, we woke up and then we had a dry session. So
we did.
Grip was going to be low because lots of the grip had been washed away. But so we're going to have that difference where qualifying wasn't going to be the telltale sign for what's going to happen in this race.
Yep.
And so we saw a really great race where strategy was king in this situation.
Strategy
wasn't it?
was king. I don't think we expected. I mean, we didn't have a lot of information around the hards leading up to it. I think it was Lando that dumped a set of hards pre-race, because you can discard one and swap it in. So that looked to be, without promoting it to the world, it looked to be a wrong call again from McLaren on the pit wall there to discard a set of hard tyres, because it was clearly the best race tyre, I think.
Is that because they got to get rid of some because they've used them through practice?
I think so. No, I can't remember the reason why it is, like the technical reason why. But you can discard a set if you don't need it. If you have spares and you don't need them, I need to go back and remember the reg, because it doesn't happen a lot and it's very rarely publicised. But I found it really unusual that we were informed that he was dropping the hard, because obviously a lot of people like us recognise that the hard was the best race tyre at the end there too. And
so we saw. Well, let's go through in the typical order that we do.
Yes,
George Russell. So George Russell started in 7th, I think it was, and was sort of just steady as she goes.
Just doing his thing.
Yep, doing his thing. Wasn't looking like he was going to turn anything on. And then all of a sudden it turned out that, he realised that nothing was really on for his race. And so mid-race, he just made the call, righto, we're going for a one-stop. We're going to see how we go over one-stop.
34 laps it ended up being, didn't it?
Yep. Trying to pull off this type of race is not for the faint-hearted. It's one of those ones where you got to get it right. Turns out the tyre that he was on was really robust, and that's exactly how they described it. It was a robust tyre. It was holding performance. It wasn't degrading too quickly, and I think that was aided by the way that the track actually was. So what we saw is him have a lead, and then it was all about everyone realising that this is what his strategy is going to definitely be, because we saw a few people sort of talk about it, flirt with the idea, and then chicken out and make the stops. Whereas, he stuck with it, and then it was the big race to see who could catch him. And it looked like, for all intent and purposes, that Hamilton was going to catch him. Yeah. Looked like, for all intent and purposes, Norris was going to... Piastri was going to catch him.
Yep.
Looked like Norris and Verstappen were going to catch him, really. Like, we're expecting him to drop off in a big way.
Absolutely, we were.
And we're going to end the race by saying, hey, you know what? Worth a shot. You weren't in with the shot for the race. I didn't mind it, but it didn't quite come off.
No.
Whereas George made it happen, and he drove beautifully to make it happen. And, he managed to maintain that gap just enough and, come at home with a couple of seconds gap to Hamilton.
I think it was like 1.4 in the end. It's one of the closest finishes across the top three in the last decade. It was. Which, you could even see Oscar was really pushing in that last lap too. And
it was exciting.
Closer than what he was.
Yep. And so it was just a fine drive from him, and managed it. It was one of those ones where he made the call with the team. It wasn't just him, but he made the call with the team.
Yep.
They took a risk, and it paid off in a big way. And it was one of those ones where you're like, you know what, good on him. Ricciardo used to pull these sorts of moves off sometimes.
Absolutely.
It's a couple of his, I was explaining to someone the other day, a couple of his great wins have been from just making a bit of a different call, taking a bit of a risk, see what happens, and he's brought home the bacon. And it's very much a Russell win. And it was like, he's turned his season around. When we were talking about him not necessarily performing the way we thought he might, he's going to need to be the leader of this team.
Yep.
All of a sudden, he's got a couple of races under his belt.
Absolutely.
And then we leave it until a little bit of time after the race, and then we find out that they are underweight. And so it's about an hour and a half or an hour that word starts getting out that there's weight issues. Ooh. And so they've come out and they've said, rightio, we're going to need to go and do some more weighing because you've come in underweight. And the problem is that the car needs to be 790 798, is it? Kilos?
I think you're pretty close spot on
Yeah.
that, actually, yeah.
798, I think. 798 kilos. And they were within the right amount to start with.
It was sort of within the window, so I think it was weighed on Sunday morning, and it weighed the actual correct amount. And then from what I've read is that they've come in afterwards, they've left X amount of fuel in to keep the weight within it, but then they haven't drained the efficient amount.
I believe that they were somewhat understanding as to where the situation was at.
Yep.
So they had actually around about 2.8 kilo of fuel in the car.
Yeah.
Because fuel isn't measured in litres, it's measured in kilos for Formula 1 cars. And they had to give their 1 kilo sample of fuel to the stewards, and they did that. And so that was them in the right spot, but then all of a sudden, rightio, well, now let's get rid of the rest of the fuel to do our weight check, and then all of a sudden it was underweight. And so while it finished the race within the right weight range, fuel can't be included as part of that.
What are your thoughts about the pickup theory? Because a lot of people have talked about the need for pickup at other tracks, obviously with Spa being as big as what it is, so they come around the first turn and then they sort of make their way back in. They don't do the pickup lap. And there was talk today that the pickup could have counteracted that 1.5 deficit. I mean, I don't know. 1.5 kilos is a lot of pickup.
Oh, I think it's absolutely within range. So the
really, because I don't know. Like,
well, I was always under the belief
4 tyres, maybe.
Well, I was always under the belief that that is absolutely how much. I'd heard that stat years ago that you could pick up somewhere between 1 to 1.5 kilo.
That's a lot. Like if you think about like, and I understand. Like your gym weight that you might have in your home.
Yeah,
like
I understand.
Almost 2 kilos, which
I
is
worked
rubber.
Worked in a deli for years, my friend.
I know. When you ask for 150 grams of chicken,
I'm on it.
You're the type of deli attendant that would give you 150.
Yeah, I was good. But yeah, so look, that and the fact that they ran those tyres for so long and lost so much rubber off them.
Yep.
I understand. There's a certain element though that I'm not entirely sure that would have been the be-all and end-all on it. And look, so, yeah, it is a tricky one. It is a tricky one. I mean, Mercedes, to their credit, came out and apologised to George straight away. We've made a mistake. We need to go and look into it. And they did all the right things. So they did some reweights. They calibrated weights. They took tyres off so that they will know this answer.
Yep.
And because it's not an absolute clarified answer, it feels like there's something else to it. Because otherwise I would have been able to say, yeah, look, our tyres were expected to be at this weight, but they ended at this weight. And so I feel like, because they did do a weighing without tyres, without wheels,
yes, correct. Yep.
And so, yeah, I think there's a little bit more to it. But, yeah, they've obviously made a big mistake.
Yep.
Your heart breaks for George, doesn't it? Like, it was a
It
great drive.
does in that situation, yeah. Like, especially to claw back from where he was to do the management across 34, and then through no fault of his own, to be shortchanged by 1.5 kilos. But, I mean, at the same time, you still, a little harder you ask, how does someone like Mercedes get that wrong? I mean, if we were sitting here talking about Bottas and Steak, you'd be laughing at it, going, how can, 1.5. But then when you look at such a slick and well-oiled machine like Mercedes, to miss it by that much, like I really feel 1.5 is a huge deficit.
I'm really interested to see where their calculations are at in terms of...
But then where did they get that wrong?
Yeah.
They're the type of team that very rarely gets it wrong.
Yep.
I mean, if this was McLaren, we'd be sitting here shaking our heads going, again, seriously? If it was Ferrari, it would be same old Ferrari. But yeah, I don't know. 1.5 is a lot. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Something about it is just not right. Not that I have really any conspiracies around it.
No, I'm interested.
But there's just something about that amount that it's just not right.
I'm sure Mercedes will come out with some proper,
I'm sure they will too,
technical announcement on it all. But yeah, until then, it's just, I guess,
100 mils, you'd go, yep, fair.
Yep.
Maybe it was too hot, it expanded.
Yep.
Whatever. I don't know. It's a lot to miss by.
Yep. So yeah, no, it's one of those ones, but it's the rules. you break the rules like that.
Rules are the rules.
It's almost one of those ones you're like, oh, well, at least we don't have to talk about whether it's controversial, because it's not controversial.
And you know what? The way that it's applied, it's consistently, is you're underweight, you're out. And that's probably why we're so accepting of it when it is a judge like that.
Yep. What do you think of Hamilton's race?
I thought Hamilton's race was pretty good.
Pretty good.
Pretty good, yeah. It was pretty good. I thought he really managed his stint well. He's sort of back, isn't he, in that really long tyre preservation mode that he does. That's his go-to. Mm-hmm. It's I'm going to preserve it. I've always got life in the end of the tyres. However, his big bugbear across Sunday was that he was called in when he still felt that he had life left in his tyres. It was really unusual that Mercedes kind of didn't back him in, because over the years that we've seen the way Lewis has driven, if he's got tyre life, it's generally going to use it.
The cost to, Lewis had the opportunity to push for a one-stop. That wasn't what he was pushing for.
No, but he's always had
moments.
Life. Yep.
That wasn't what he was pushing for.
No.
He wasn't ever suggesting that they should be going for a one-stop.
Yeah.
He was always going to be making the stop anyway. They managed to keep road position with all their stops.
Yeah.
If he doesn't make those stops, he ends up behind Norris.
Yep.
Or at least behind Piastri, But so Piastri didn't make the calls quite soon enough, in my opinion, because the undercut once again was strong. The cars were very similar in pace, and so they weren't able to make those big gains.
Yeah.
And so, for me, I'm not convinced that Hamilton, unless he goes for the one stop, which in hindsight turned out to be the right one. Now that was Plan C for a lot of teams.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even like that was in the realm of consideration for most teams.
Yeah.
And so unless he's going for the one stop, the other stops, I feel like they nailed it. I feel like Mercedes actually nailed it. And so, I was a bit disappointed with his criticism of them, because you can understand why Russell's gone for it.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't within that race. Whereas Hamilton is in this race up to his knees. He's winning it.
Yep.
Unless Russell pulls off this miraculous stop.
We've seen it happen the other way too, though. Like we've seen in the Bottas years where Lewis has been given a different strategy and it's worked out.
Yep.
So I wonder if it's just that two-part play. It's that for some reason his trust around his tyre life, it kind of wasn't there from his team, when it is his go-to that he is very, very good at.
Yep.
But then is it a case of, for some reason, the strategy that looked like was working suddenly didn't work, and he's found it difficult to come to terms with that, especially after the highs of Silverstone that he's just come down off. And is this also him? We know what the best strategy is, but we don't want you to take that knowledge to Ferrari. He has to make a little bit of an adjustment with things like this too.
The Russell strategy wasn't ever their ideal strategy. It wasn't
what they have been. Just hats off to George, because he nailed it.
He nailed it. The team nailed it. They tried something different.
Yep.
And I felt like, you know what? That's just good on them.
Yeah.
Celebrate that, Lewis, and stop talking about what's happened to you. Because I feel like he was given the optimum strategy to everyone's best knowledge.
Yeah, okay.
And I felt like they pulled it off well.
Yep.
They made the stops at the right time, so they had track position.
Yep.
And so, I thought that Lewis's race was great and his team strategy was great. Didn't love his sooking about it. I felt like,
fair. Yeah,
they just grow up again a little bit, Lewis. But hey, when these drivers start becoming competitive again, we see that fight back in them.
We do.
So part of me loves
sort
that
of a little bit there, isn't it? Yeah.
Yep. So I'm not all down on gloom about it. Next on the road was Piastri. Finished in third, promoted to second. Now that was a nice race, wasn't it?
I've been saying it for weeks. He's driving better than Lando.
You have been saying.
Are you jumping on it?
Yes. Yep. I'm on.
He is
all aboard.
He's driving so much better than Lando is. So much better.
Yep. I wouldn't say so much better, but yes, I agree. He's matching him, and he's in better.
We even
than
saw
in
in quali in the practice session. It was Oscar up there in 3 and 4. And it was Lando down in 7 and 8. It's just,
Well, not by the end of the qualifying.
No,
though,
but
and that's the thing. Like, you just got to nail those last little finishing moves through qualifying. Yep. Those last little finishing moves with time management, and I'm 100% with you. He is coming along nicely for what looked like a bit of a sleepy season, where we're almost expecting more.
Yep.
He's starting to really shine, isn't he?
Yep, absolutely.
I felt like they were a little slow on some of these stops, though. So he lost some track position.
Yeah.
And once again, that was because tyre life was unexpectedly good.
Yep.
And he was in the same idea frame as where Lewis was at. My tyres are pretty good. I can get more out of them. He went and put in a couple of great laps after the others pitted.
Yep.
However, that road position was lost, and it was harder than predicted to go and gain it again. He made some great overtaking moves.
He did, yep.
But it was just a little bit harder to go and gain again. But he did charge through. He managed his tyres to the end. He had that life to the end. And the charge from him was disrupted a couple of times.
It was, yep.
But I felt like, he was charging in, and I thought, it was a really, really strong race.
Yep, I agree with you.
Norris, what was your thoughts on Norris's race?
It's a bit nowhere land for Lando, wasn't it? Start was poor.
Yep.
Start was poor. Very, very critical of his work in turn one. I don't know that was the difference there.
There's been a couple of poor starts though.
I feel like
he should have been ahead of Piastri.
Yeah,
that start. Yep.
I feel like he's I just feel like his race start. I just feel like his race start wasn't great, but then I think the overall management of the first stint, he just looked like he was in preservation mode a little bit too much. And could have pushed a little bit more. There's a couple of opportunities for overtakes, but it almost looked hesitant to sort of take it with that reduced DRS zone, and then being hesitant and then putting him on the back foot for the rest of the lap. So I don't know. I was a bit of an off one for him, and I wonder if the noise around last weekend maybe played a little bit of a part in that, because his initial comments when he arrived was,
I stuffed up.
I stuffed up. I've overshadowed Oscar's first win.
Yep.
I feel crap about it. And I just wonder if that's played a little bit of a part on him, and he was off this weekend. So I wouldn't put it down to anything more than that, to be quite honest, because it wasn't atrocious.
Once again, he should have been narrowing the gap to Max, and it went the opposite way. Only by 2 points, but it went the opposite way.
But that's sort of, we talked about that with the team the other week too, where we feel like they've recognised that the world title is out of reach.
But I agree. But so once again, he should have been in a position where he was narrowing the gap, whereas it was actually being extended. And we've said this a lot about Max. He is driving in a way that is making it really difficult to chase him down, because his closest rivals aren't gaining points on him. He keeps on managing to pull off a win, or keeps on managing to stay ahead. And he should have been able to get Max, but obviously didn't. And, it was a bit of a so-so race for poor old Norris.
It was.
Let's talk Leclerc. Good, solid race.
Didn't expect him to be up on pole air quotes.
Expected him to drop back through the field quicker.
Yes,
and none of those things were true.
No, just sort of solid. It was the opposite to Lando. Lando was off. I wouldn't say Charles was on.
No, I wouldn't say
it was a bit of a rescue. It was a bit of a rescue mission sort of race, wasn't it? Where he needed to be consistent, faultless, error-free, and just head down and work away at the weekend. And that was sort of the general flow that we saw. It looked like Ferrari. I mean, we know that their Monza package is going to be elite because it always is. This track obviously has the characteristics that will indicate what we're going to get when we go to Monza. I'm sure they've got a trick up their sleeve again when it comes to their home race. So hindsight's a wonderful
This
thing.
car wasn't affected by safety car at all.
No,
and he only ended up 7 seconds behind, less than 7 seconds behind Piastri.
Yep. So that's all right.
So that's for me, that's a key indicator.
I think so too.
If he was in fourth, but he was 25 seconds behind, I'd say, there's still work to do. Or if there was a safety car late, which sort of squished the field, I'd be like, okay, we're not sure where they're at. But for me, it's a bit of an indicator. He had a really great race for starters, but then I think also, I think they're closing the gap a little bit. But I'm with you. I think the car has enjoyed this circuit.
I think so too, yep.
Max Verstappen had the engine penalty.
Yep.
Well, people figure, and then managed to pull off some fine driving through through qualifying. Sorry. They went for the wet weather, or more, not full wet weather, but more of a wet weather package.
More of a wet package, yep.
To aid them through qualifying. And I think that sort of showed too, because they didn't have that real straight line speed when it came to the race.
Yep.
But yeah, it was once again, it was like his closest rival he's finished in front of. At this stage of the season, that's just a tick going every day of the week for Max, isn't it? He doesn't need to necessarily do more.
Nope.
And it was for Max, it felt like a real race where he knew he didn't need to do more.
That's true.
He just, he got the job done. He just maintained position, which is really important because there's a risk that he could start losing serious points with where the car situations are at.
I think so too.
But he's not allowing that to happen.
No, did we expect him to come rocketing through the field like we've seen in years gone by?
Well, we talked about it, didn't we?
I kind of
did.
It
just doesn't happen anymore quite the same.
It didn't.
Starting in 11th, he made a couple of positions really quickly, and then work was tough.
First few laps were a real sign of that suddenly the charge was not there. Yep. I don't know. I think our expectations of the RB20 need to come down now.
Yeah.
I really do. Like, I think we need to remember that it's not the absolute rocket it was in the first 7 rounds.
Yeah, I think if he starts that race in 5th, he gains a few positions.
You think, yeah?
But I'm not sure he's chasing down the guys at the front.
That's fair.
I think if he starts that race in 10th, he gains a few positions, and then he worked his way through.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty decent drive from Max. But for me, it was a drive that he knows the situation of the season. He wants to get to that mid-season break with the gap that he's got.
Tick away, collect your points.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's about 3 race wins ahead, I think.
Yeah,
and that's pretty decent.
It is. You're right.
It's pretty decent.
I agree
for
with
what
you.
they need.
It's a little bit more. We talked about, what did we say? It needs to be every single race must be won by Lando. Yep. I mean, look, we're already 5 days later than what we mentioned to talk about it, and it hasn't happened.
Yep.
So you definitely have to say that it's looking unlikely.
Perez is his teammate, and he's still his teammate.
Yeah, what do you think of that? That was sort of the news from today.
So news is coming out that Red Bull were going to be reviewing before they go to summer break, which is what they usually do.
Yep.
All teams would have a little review before they go off on the summer break. Probably a big review, I'd say.
I would say so too.
Before summer break, because when they get back, they want to be able to hit the ground running. And probably, I don't know whether anyone is expecting a driver change.
Oh, I think
we
were.
I think I was expecting more to come.
You didn't expect them just to come out today and
not
just
necessarily
go, yes.
announce it.
Nah, I don't know how I feel about it either.
They came out and they spoke to this Christian Horner spoke to the factory and said that Sergio Perez will be driving for us.
Yep.
After the summer break.
And an hour ago he said that Dan will be driving for RB.
Yes.
At this point in time.
Yes, and so, but that was the thing. He didn't say he'll be driving for the remainder of the season.
Yep.
He didn't say that he would be our second
one,
driver all the way through.
There
was no certainty around it. It was like, I'm buying a couple of extra races for us to go and see what's going on.
Do we need to buy a couple of races?
Look, our opinion's different, but I'm just talking about what Christian's
Marco's comments was that he capitulated across the race weekend.
Yep.
And just collapsed in on himself, and that's such
the other thing that they talked about was
wording.
We're going to give him his strong tracks. And so they're talking about going to the street circuits of Baku and Singapore, which is where Perez has shone in the past when he needs to shine.
Yep.
That's where he goes and shines in the past. That's still 2 races. So we don't go to Baku until 3 races after the resumption of the season.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, if you're going to give him these extra 2, you sacrificing 2 races in your world championship.
Do they feel like
to maybe get him back into a sweet spot?
Is the sudden resurgence of Mercedes giving them the buffer? Is it that? If we didn't have Merc where they were, is that giving them?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It's the buffer there to go. You can get in the way of a
So
McLaren.
So the other part of this is he's announced it to the factory.
Yeah,
nothing has been announced, has it? To media?
Nothing's been officially announced at media. So a lot of media reporting today that he, himself, Marco, and the stakeholders got together at Milton Keynes. They've had a discussion about what it's going to look like, that they are going to hang on to him. They're going to give him time at his strong tracks to see what it looks like. They've then followed suit to say Dan will stay in RB, and then that's ready to go, and then that's it. But nothing official from Red Bull saying... Do they need to be official, though, is my question, knowing that we know that Checo is the contracted driver. We probably don't need a confirmation of a contract and a driver that is currently there.
Yeah, it's a weird one. There's nothing. Oh, pardon me. There's nothing beyond what we're saying here.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, but it's just. I think they're leaving themselves really open. I think the championship is on.
Maybe there's more behind it. Maybe it's things like sponsorship. Maybe there's other things at play that we don't really think about when it comes to that.
I think politics is definitely part of it.
Politics is part of it.
I think the fact that Helmut Marko and Christian Horner can't agree on drivers at the moment, let alone other things. So
the
maybe
powertrains, the funding that comes with Telmex.
Maybe there was a power because the belief is that Helmut Marko is quite interested in trying to bring up Lawson, or Yuki potentially. And Horner's really wanting to bring in Ricciardo, and so if they're at equal power within that team within this decision, and they can't come to an agreement, then maybe that's how Perez holds his spot.
Yeah.
And then for me, that just feels like, well, this ain't over. We might get a different announcement a week down the track. We might get a different announcement 3 weeks down the track. Yeah. And so I wouldn't be at all surprised if we hear something else out of the team before we get going again. But we'll have to wait and see. I think if they are sticking with Perez, maybe they're hoping that the summer break's going to do him the world of good. He's going to refresh himself. He's going to get back into the spaces where he needs to be, and then all of a sudden he's into these tracks. But yeah, it's an interesting one. It is an interesting one.
Do you think he did enough on the weekend?
Oh, I thought it was a terrible race. To go from second all the way back to eighth,
seventh, obviously promoted to
Like I thought it was a really disappointing race when he set himself up to have a really strong race. He just did not have any competitiveness about him, and I don't know what Red Bull thought that they're going to get into the future. But
I mean, he was there.
He was there.
He was thereabouts.
Max wasn't ready to win the race, and he was in a position to win the race, and he did the complete opposite. What is the point in having him?
No, I know.
There is no point in having him.
I don't know. He's like.
Are we suggesting that the Red Bull's way stronger than what it is? Maybe is the Red Bull actually in that position, and Max is just getting a bunch out of it?
Well, P1 was 7th. So P1 was 7th, and then if we're looking at P2 was 9th. Yeah, that's not great. P3 was where he sort of came to life a little bit, not really 10th. Maybe P3 didn't really exist.
Maybe Red Bull know that most drivers will be doing the same in that car.
Yep.
And we may as well have somebody who knows it.
Well, maybe that's it. I mean, Q1 he did a 55.
Most drivers aren't doing the crashy thing as well.
He was well quicker in Q1 than most, and 155.1 than those around him that were doing 55.5, 6s, 3s. Q2 is 55.4, which is a little bit slower because you've got Lewis that did a 54.0, you got Leclerc that did a 54.1, and then you got Max that did a 53.8, even Piastri did a 54.1. So he was not really there. He was about half a second off, to be quite honest, when it came to Q2. And then Q3 he was a 53.7. Those around him, the benchmark there. But even Max was a 53.1. I mean, Max is nearly a full second quicker than him in that. I don't know. I agree with you there too. Like, what's the point? I really feel like they've got it. They know we've got the buffer. There's plenty around us. Like, let's just hang on to it. We don't need to do anything dramatic.
There's no guarantees that someone else is going to necessarily do any better, but it's the crashy thing for me.
Is it the behind the scenes political stuff that we talked about?
I think
do we need another wave of controversy?
I think there's another I think there is an element of that. I don't know that they can agree on who should be promoted.
We don't need to make waves. So
if we can't agree, we'll stick with what we've got.
Yep.
Anyway,
and just wait and see what it looks like. I don't know. Is there
anyone else you want to mention from the race?
Fernando actually made the one-stop work.
He did,
and didn't get disqualified.
No,
so that's a real positive there from the Astons. Again, the Astons they're lost, aren't they?
Yep,
they're lost. They're like sad little kittens.
He took a few by surprise, by
just lost. Yeah, he did. Finished off in 8th position. So I guess sort of best to the rest too. But he managed that. I thought the Alpines were better.
Well, yeah, they're okay.
They sort of had more of a focus on race setup, though. You can see that the way that quali and practice went down, that they had a real deficiency with their drag, but then obviously that paid off dividends in the dry conditions. So
Ocon came home with some faster race tyres.
Yeah.
And managed to pit Ricciardo for, I think it was 10th which was then
Yeah,
promoted to
Dan
9th.
finished 11th and then became 10th.
Yeah, so-
Ocon was 9th too. Sauber were looking like they were on for points. I don't for the life of me know what that last pit stop was for.
Yeah,
Just,
it was a strange one.
it was there. It's like, let's not have any points.
Well, no, they weren't on for points.
They were looking like it. I thought they were really in it.
Yeah,
in amongst it.
Yeah, well,
I didn't understand the need for that last stop, and I haven't seen the actual reasoning.
I'm with you. I didn't understand the need for the last points, but but they weren't in for points. They weren't in there.
I reckon they were.
So Ricciardo was chasing down Stroll and Alonso.
Yep.
And then Ocon on newer tyres was chasing down Ricciardo. Ricciardo got Stroll, couldn't get Alonso, and then Ocon managed to get Ricciardo with a couple of laps to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was rather than Ricciardo's race was great.
Oh, that was good.
Really, really strong race. He's had a string of strong races.
Yep.
And that's the thing. He's had a really strong string of strong races. We've seen the opposite from his teammate Yuki Tsunoda, which is exactly why they haven't promoted him. Like, if there was ever a time to promote someone that you were comfortable with,
Yep.
it would be now, and
now,
they haven't been willing to do that. Likewise for Ricciardo.
Yep.
He hasn't had the start of the season.
Hulk doing some new package testing, I thought. They brought a little bit with their floor.
Yep. 3, 2, and 1 driver of the year, thanks to all signs. Who are you going with?
Who am I going with? I have to go with 3 for Russell. I know he was disqualified.
Can we? So,
but
he
was the best. He was the best on the day, and it's not his fault. The car's underweight.
Well, it wasn't legal.
But it's not his fault. It's not his job to do that. His job is to drive it. He pulled off the strategy. He made it work. It was beautiful. He was nowhere and then won. Okay. It's not his fault. It's 1.5 kilos lighter. 3 points, Russell.
Russell with an asterisk, I'll give that.
No, you can't asterisk that.
Like,
legitimately 3.
Watch me.
2 to Piastri.
Yep.
And 1 to Leclerc.
So Hamilton doesn't get one?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. 2 to Piastri. And 1 to Leclerc. There he is. For me, I can't give. I'm with you. Russell drove beautifully.
Yep.
It's heartbreaking for him, but he's not getting any points off me.
Okay.
That's not on. Look, I'm going to go 3 to Hamilton. I thought Hamilton drove a really strong race.
Yep.
With fast cars around him.
He's in a fast car too.
2 to Piastri. I'm with you on that one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gold Shiver.
Really solid. And I was going to give Leclerc one because I really like Leclerc's race, but I don't really want to give them the same one that you gave.
Okay, who are you going to go then?
Our man Dan can have a point.
Okay, good.
I thought it was solid. I thought it was a solid race weekend.
Good. How are you going with tracking fan frenzy votes in there, by the way? Because you
very good.
Very good. You're happy with it? Like you found
because remember Sam caught me up.
Yes, he did.
And now I'm okay.
Oh, now yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So all I needed was to go back and catch up.
Yep.
Doing it from this point of view is fine. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, all over it.
Well done to you.
Dud of the day.
Dud of the day. Oh, dear. Dud of the day.
I'm going to have to go with Crofty. Crofty used to star in our Dud of the day, but he is one miserable bastard, isn't he?
Really? Why?
Well, there's a couple. There's a couple of reasons as to why.
Yeah.
The number one was, they're going to have to swap Hamilton into the lead because Russell can't possibly hold on to this. They're going to have to swap Hamilton into the lead. Yeah. And at one stage then Martin was like, I don't know that they are going to.
Yeah.
And he just continued on and on and on with it.
Yeah,
and it was like, I'm not sure like which universe you've been watching Formula One from, but it's a bloody big thing to be swapping drivers for a race win. When one's trying to pull off a one-stop, one's leading a team at the end of the year, I was baffled by his continued commentary around how that would be. So Crofty can have my dud of the day.
All right, I think for me, I'm going to go podiums before penalties. Podiums before penalties, because while it's exciting and dramatic to have that sort of controversy at the end, I think if we've got some bits and pieces that we've got to do, I just feel like we can find 5 minutes somewhere. Just There's something. I'm not quite sure what.
But it was an hour and a half.
I can just find 5 minutes. Yeah, I know it was
an
hour and a half, but I think
before they were even looking at it, and then it was another hour before anything was announced.
I don't know. It's just
I'm with you.
If it's annoying. A little thing, it's annoying. It's unnecessary. There are times where you can just get on with it.
We're not waiting.
I don't know. I think I'm clutching at straws for a dud this week because it was kind of just one of those very cruisy weekends. So.
I mean, you got your typicals.
Yeah,
you got your typicals. Driver of the day. How are people voting driver of the day?
Yeah.
At the start, like so early before we've got the race result, is just baffling. You can't possibly vote.
Yeah.
Before the race, like if Hamilton overtakes Russell, he's driver of the day. Or if Russell holds him off, Russell has to be driver of the day.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's just
we know
baffling.
driver of the day is a bit
if Oscar comes around both of them,
who was driver of the day?
It was Hamilton, okay. But it was it was voted for well and truly before the end. And anyway,
wow,
that's because
wrong,
Russell pulled
George
off. Yeah, the greatest drive.
That's why it's a pointless award. It's
so
a
we
popularity
have got
contest.
We've got a few like that, haven't we? But it's just
I don't know. I was struggling this week, which is kind of good. It's nice to not have too many duds every now and then.
Yep. All right, I'm with you. F1.5.
F1.5, greatest championship in the world. We have a new entry into the podium.
Ooh.
Brand new. Brand new
Our man
into
Dan.
The podium. Last time out, it was Hulkenberg who was just holding on and just chipping away. His points have dropped, and it was a disaster weekend for Nico, who only scored 2 points. So, we'll see what that impact.
Yuki can't have had a good one either.
See what that sort of impact has on the actual title as well. Yuki was hanging on in second place, and it was Magnussen who was having a nice little run of 10, 10, and 10 to hang on to third. However, someone has been displaced. Someone has been displaced. All right, bottom to top. In last place, we know Logan Sargent. 4 points for Logan, 61 points for him this weekend, so that's all right. It's Bottas.
Has Logan had an improved second half of the season?
Well, if you look at his
second part of the first half.
Well, let's go across the last 6 races because that's a bit of an indication, all right? So we'll go 6 weeks ago. This is the first run. This is the first half of that. 1-1-1.
Yep.
Then if we look at the second half of this little 6-week block, 12-6-4.
Okay.
So it's all right.
So yes, he's had a little improvement.
Yeah. K-Mag's looking a little bit like this. So he's got 10-6-18.
Yep.
And then it was 10-10-10 to give a little bit of a comparison to that too. Yeah. So that's Sargent's. Bottas is next. His 6-week run has looked like 8-8-4.
Okay.
And then 6-8-8.
So
he's sitting on 85.
This is a nice little review.
This is a nice little review, isn't it?
Well done.
Yeah, good. I like this. Didn't think of this.
It came to you.
This come to me just then.
Zhou,
92 points. His block was...
Oh, Zhou, he still can't quite...
Still can't quite do it, can he? We were looking at 4-12-2 for the first half of the block, and it's been a miserable 3-2-2-1.
Ooh.
Is where he's looking there. So you see on 92 points. So, 5 across 3 weeks. He's not great there, yeah? All right, Gasly next.
I can't believe he gets a point and he only completed 5 laps.
Gasly is a little bit of a mixed bag here. He's on 135 points. His 6-week block is 18, 25, and 12. But then he's gone 1-1-12.
Okay.
So didn't have a good sort of...
So they did come good and then
didn't have a good fortnight in there. So that's cost him a little bit next. Only 1 point adrift from that point there is Alex Albon.
Yep.
So you're sort of comparing Gasly and Albon's season there. First half of Albon's 4-6-18. No, sorry, 2-4-6. And then it's 18, 12, and 15.
Oh.
So he's had a pretty tidy 3 weeks.
Oh, you owe him an apology.
That's helped out. I don't owe him an apology at all. 136 points. You're a point ahead of an Alpine that wasn't even racing in round 1. So, no, not great. Where are we going to from there next? We're going to Kevin Magnussen, surprisingly.
Okay.
Going to Kevin Magnussen, surprisingly.
So he's dropped from third.
Last week's third.
5th, is it
to
now?
About 5th. Well, we do a quick eye check here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
Okay.
Told you this little midfield group is tightening up. So his 6-week block has been 10, 6, 18.
Yep.
And then it's 10, 10, 10, which doesn't sound awful.
No,
like
no, it doesn't.
That's pretty good, but it's those around him that really boost on. So it's 153 points for him. So he's dropped in behind Ocon, whose 3-week block is looking like this: 15, 18, 10.
Mm-hmm.
But then he's gone 4, 4, 25. So he's taken the win across the weekend.
Wow.
So
okay.
that's a really important last round there. 156 for Ocon.
Mm-hmm.
Then
our man Dan.
We're getting into our third placer.
It's our man Dan.
Yeah, which is Dan. And his 6-week period has looked like this. And this would be, bar Hulkenberg's, this is the best 6-week period that we've got.
I'm just going to get Helmet, Marco, and Christian Horner.
All right, and this is why I think a few people are questioning.
Helmet, Christian. Helmet, yeah, put Christian on speakerphone for me, where?
25, 10. You know how you say, like, you're just acting. You say you don't like me showing things.
Yeah, but this
like
is acting. This is audio craft, my friend. Radio craft.
Performing.
This is craft.
It's craft.
You hearing this? Boys? 25.
You look like
10.
my 3-year-old pretending to order coffee on Mum's phone.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't need to do the visual, did I?
No, that's not so.
Good point.
Jeez. 25, 10, 15 is his first 3 block.
Yep.
And then 8, 18, 18.
8, 18, 18.
Yeah, so 25, 10, 15, 8, 18,
Strong.
18. That's a very, very big block. That's 163 points, and he is in 3rd place.
Yep.
2nd place is Yuki. Here's a direct teammate comparison in those blocks. 6 to 8.
Wow.
15, 25, 6.
Wow.
So while he's got the win in there
one.
last week, there's, other than that, 4 of those have been single figures, 6, 2 and 8.
I didn't realise Dan had outperformed him.
But that's a big difference there across the 6-week period there.
In 5 of the last 6 weeks.
And it's by a lot too. It's not by a little margin. So
interesting.
You know, when Dan had 25, Yuki had 6, Dan had 10, Yuki had 2.
There you go.
Dan had 15, Yuki had 8, and went the other way around, 15, 8. And then 25, 18, but then Dan's gone 18 to 6. So that's looking good. And then obviously winning, but again, Hulkenberg, he's done what Max is doing.
What's Sonoda on?
So 209 for Yuki.
Okay.
So he's still about 40. What's that?
Yep.
That's 46 odd clear of Dan.
Yep.
But we know in this title race, that's easily caught. Hulkenberg's doing what Max has done. He did the early heavy lifting first. And then he's just been, I don't know, it's been a bit of an in and out. So he is our championship leader at the moment still, 225. There's only been 2 occasions he hasn't led the title there. And then his last 6 rounds look a little bit like this.
What was his... Oh, yeah, sorry.
K-Mag was flying at the start.
Yep.
So his 6-week block is pretty tidy. It's 12, 15, 25, 25, 15, and then 2. So this week... This week's the trash week.
And then there's a trash.
It's very solid. But right now, the form driver is Dan, up and down the field. So anyway...
Dan and Hulk. That's pretty decent.
Dan and Hulk. So that's...
What a championship.
What a title race.
So what's the difference between top 2?
So the difference between top 2, you've got Nico on 223. You've got Yuki on 209. So not a lot. What's that? That's not much.
14.
That's not much. It's 10-17. I'm not doing
14.
math this time. No, it's 14 points. It's 14 points, and then you got Dan at 163 as well. But I mean, Dan is, he's only 10 points clear of K-Mag, and Ocon as well. It's only 4. It's only 7 clear of Ocon too. So he's gettable, but it's nice to see him in there, a bit of reward for effort.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Fantasy.
Oh, fantasy.
Let's talk fantasy while you're on a roll.
Thanks to Chris. I have a mouthful.
Yes, clear your throat. Thanks to Chris from Dr. Auto Art. Some great things going out at the moment on Dr. Auto Art.
I'd like to see a George disqualification art.
Is it the one where he's looking devastated on the
sad.
phone?
Just have a sad one. So Chris,
saddest.
Like, I know it's great to reward like the wins and stuff like that. Let's have a George sad because he got disqualified art.
Oh, that is.
I would love to. I'd actually love to see it. Like, I mean, how long? I can't remember how long Chris said it takes to make it. But Chris, if you have got, like, let's say it takes half an hour to make the artwork. If you've got time,
you're gonna have to purchase.
Just make one.
You need to commission it.
But can you imagine? Like, that would get traction on social media. I saw a photo on motorsport.com. No, sorry, on Instagram. of a fan who brought along a photo and asked Lewis to sign the photo. But the photo was of Max punting him off at Spa. And his response to it was, I'm not signing that.
Fair
and
enough.
Then walked off. And I thought, oh, that's poor. You've literally got an opportunity to grab an autograph with a 7-time world champion. And you've given him that kind of photo. And we know he's a little bit particular about what he signs.
No, fair enough.
But yeah, fair enough, I thought. But anyway, so Chris, for you directly as a wonderful sponsor of our competition here, if it's half an hour for an artwork and you've got half an hour, please throw together.
It's not half an hour.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying, if it does take half an hour, and you've got half an hour, make a George disqualification.
It takes a long time.
Just make it. It would be good. I'd like to see it.
I think you'd sell it for you.
I reckon. I tell you what, people would jump on it. People would jump on it and they would sell it. I reckon it'd be the most popular one.
But I'm not sure, because you got to have. You got to have that moment where he's seen.
He was talking about the photos. There is a couple of photos of him very, very sad sitting down. Anyway, if you agree with me, get in touch on our socials.
Just have a look at the results. Let's not do this.
Email Chris. All right, let's have a look at the results.
I'm not ready to do this.
You're not ready to do this?
Nah.
Have you been looking at the results?
I just had a quick look.
Oh, good. That makes me feel good. All right, let's have a look at the Belgian Grand Prix.
Let's not bother.
Let's look at our top points getters. I finished on 16th.
You're kidding me. I've worked out where
16th. Good. You obviously had George, if you're having that reaction. I'm looking at 16th. What's that? That's minus 25, I think DQ is. I'm on 16th with 174, so that's not too bad. I'm all right with that. I'll dive into the team very, very shortly. But our top 10 from Spa is Dean Holt on 223. Went the wild card. Danielson in second place on 216. Jolyon Dyer 188 on 3. Lawrence van der Veer 4th on 185. Nicola Taylor 183. Tied with Jimmy Raikkonen on 183. Chloe Anderson on 183. Andy Tails on 183. AJ Ferguson on 182. And Christian, I'm not going to try and pronounce that last name, Avils. That was all right. Christian Avils in 10th place on 179 points. So that's the top 10 for Spa. I finished in 16th on 174. That's not too bad. All right, let's find you.
I'm so annoyed. I've just seen what's happened.
Oh man, I'm at 29. Fill the air with some sort of elevator music.
I've just found what's happening.
Where are you? I'm still going.
So I had George.
Oh, 47.
So I had George.
You suck. That's 47.
And George cost a disqualification, 25 points, negative 25 points.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So I got negative 21 for him. But he was due to win the race.
Yep.
Wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
And so...
And would have made a lot of ground off 7.
I would have picked up 25 points. So it's a 50-point
turnaround. It's a 50-point swing, isn't it?
So I would have actually, without the negatives,
Yep.
I would have got 160 odd points, and then I would have got another 25 points on top of that.
Yep.
So
you would have been right up there. But unfortunately, you're 49th. So there you go. So you're 141. You've got a tidy little team there. I can see how you've been able to manage George and Oscar, and then you got some people around them there too. So you had minus 21 for George. Also, don't forget that impacts your constructors as well. So you would have got minus 25 for your Mercedes too.
I know.
Yeah, good. So George, you got minus 21. 6 for Yuki, 2 to Alex, 2 to Hulk. You had the double on our man Oscar for 60 points. That's tidy. McLaren was 67, and you had Mercedes with 25. So that's not too bad for my good self. How did I go? I stuck with Lando again. I didn't make any changes. So Lando, I had the double on for 34. I had 8 for Dan, 2 to Hulk, 6 for Yuki, 10 for Ocon, and then I had McLaren. And I stuck fat with the Ferraris this week, which I'm glad I did. So I had 67 for McLaren, and I had 47 for Ferrari. Heading into the summer break, let's look at the top 10. Again, thanks to Chris at Talk to Auto Art. Get around Facebook, Instagram, Redbubble, email him.
Yeah, so who's the top 3 that are looking at...
Top 3 that are looking at prizes.
Yeah, who's in contention at the moment?
For a potential George DQ. This could be the prize winner artist. So it's Dean Holt leading all comers, 3,208. Lawrence van der Veer in second place, 3,196. It's Chloe Anderson in third on 3,054. So there's a pretty sizable gap starting to
first and second is
starting
tight.
to appear. They're running away with it at the moment, Dean and Laws.
You wonder what they've used though to have that gap. So
that's it, because it could very well have been that they've used their triple, or I can see that Dean's used his wild card for the weekend too. And then in fourth place you've got Andy Tails. This is where it's very tight. This next little block, Andy Tails on 314, Jolly and Dye in fifth on 3,011. Roman Merrick on 3,010. So that's a tight little block there. And then from 7th down to 10th, you've got Fariz on 2,975. David Rojas, 2,959. My Good Self, 2,872. And then Adam Hughes, 2,864. So that's the top 10. And then you are sort of like you're kicking around. You're not doing amazing, but you're not doing awfully.
I would have been a lot better if I
would have been a lot better. I think
75 points back.
I reckon you would have been knocking on the door of the top 10 to be quite honest there if you had been 75. But you're in 15th, 2,654 is where you're sitting.
I'm disappointed.
So there we are in the summer break. So anyway, thanks to Chris. Thanks to everyone who's getting around fantasy, which is great. Are you going to make any changes?
I'm very happy with my team at the moment.
Very happy, yeah.
So I was just looking at the top two runners.
Yep.
So Chris is running with the whole Max Verstappen and Red Bull just leading the charge. He's got McLaren as a constructor.
Yep.
He's got the Haas boys, Bottas and Tsunoda.
Okay.
Whereas Laurent, how do you say his name? How are you been saying his name?
Laws Van der Veer.
Laurent Van der Veer.
Yep.
He's running the Norris, Piastri, McLaren, and Ferrari.
Okay.
What do you like there best?
What do I like there best? I like all that best. What are the three? Around them?
Well, then there's Piastri, Hülkenberg, Sargent. I almost feel like in this competition, it doesn't matter who your fillers are.
See, I do.
You've got to run good constructors
and
a decent scoring person to make.
It's almost like you need good constructors and two top runners, and then if you go on that path, that you don't really need fillers at all.
But if you're wanting a Red Bull or a Max, you can't have two.
You've got to have
good drivers.
You'll have dud fillers around it. See, I like to go the other way. I've gone McLaren. I've been able to chop and change between Mercedes and Ferrari. So knowing what's coming up, I've actually dropped Ferrari already, and I've put Mercedes in. I feel good about going to Zandvoort with the Merc as opposed to Ferrari at Zandvoort. So pulled the trigger early on that. I've made a change. I'm sort of backing in Oscar.
Yep.
I just feel like I can. It's more just that money grab. I need to grab a bit of cash, I think, just to help me out later on.
So out of Ricky Bobby, he's backing in Red Bull.
Yeah.
Or Laurent.
Yeah.
Who's backing in McLaren.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I don't know. I think it's your second one that sort of is really important.
McLaren with the Ferrari.
You've got to dip in and out of Mercedes and Ferrari when the time's right. So I've brought in Oscar for Lando, but then my fillers around that are Dan, Hulk, Yuki, and Ocon. So I'm all right with that. I think I'm big. Ocon got me 10 points this week.
Yep.
It's valuable. Anyway, thanks to Chris.
Let's talk news.
Carlos
Sainz has signed with Williams.
Yep.
Now, this makes me happy for a range of different reasons.
Yep.
Number one is that he's not having a year off, which you kept on threatening that it was going to happen. So he's not having a year off. And number two is I'm with him. He's not joining a team which is going nowhere. I'm going to make a big announcement here.
Okay.
I'm with Carlos Sainz on this.
Really?
This Audi machine which is being built is not going anywhere. There is no excitement around this team. There's worries about the engine.
Really?
They're not happy with their personnel, and so there's changeover of personnel.
Yep.
If you wanted to see something when they become the big Audi team, you'd expect to see some improvement starting to kick in.
I have no idea.
And by all reports, that's where Carlos Sainz is at. And I'm starting to agree with him. I'm not sure that there's any inspiration around that team at the moment. Hülkenberg, while having a great season,
I think it's smart.
Isn't. I'm with you. It's smart if you can get the other driver. And they haven't managed to nail that other driver.
Okay.
So, So Williams, now, after saying all that about Audi, the same could be said for Williams. The one thing I'll give Williams is that they're earlier in their progression than where Audi's at. Audi has sort of started this big revolution somewhat in more dramatic style.
Yep.
But there's two things that I like about Williams. Alex Albon and James Vowles.
Yeah.
And I think there's a bit of belief in that team. So anyway, he's chosen Williams. What are your thoughts?
For all the driver signings this year, for all that we held our breath for Carlos.
There's still a lot to come, though. There's still a lot to come, but yes.
But is it just the most meh signing of the year?
So,
like when you read the news this morning, did you just go,
this guy...
Because that was my reaction.
This guy is one of our top drivers. Would you agree?
He is.
One of the top drivers in Formula One.
He's leaving a top team.
He's leaving a top team
He's going
only because...
He is making the conscious decision
to
return to the back of the grid.
He's only leaving that team because that team had an offer that was too good to refuse.
Yep.
You're getting a 7-time world champion.
Yep.
That is Lewis Hamilton.
Yep.
That brings in money, it brings in prestige, it brings in just eyeballs galore, huge interest. All of a sudden it puts them back on the map because Hamilton comes in whether you like him or not. He comes in with all of that going for him.
Yep.
And so Carlos Sainz didn't lose his drive because of performance. It was just there was a better offer. There was an offer too good to refuse. The poor bugger, though, has been left with the 3 worst teams on the grid as his choices.
And he's picked the worst
one.
He
could have gone to Alpine, by all reports.
They're all right.
He could have gone... Yeah, but they're still like...
I know,
Are they one of the worst 3?
No, yeah, but they're probably the...
Yes, no.
Better,
I'm with you. Yeah, so, but he could... But this is where he's at. Alpine, which is one of the worst 3... Sauber, Kick Sauber, what are they called these days? They're certainly one of the worst 3.
Yeah.
And then Williams, who was certainly part of the worst 3.
But then why?
And so it's just like, what a fall from grace for this guy.
But why not the Mercedes seat?
Oh,
that's the big question.
It's baffling. And
why not the Mercedes seat?
Why not the Red Bull seat?
Well, yeah. Is there
something
about
really,
science? Like,
I find it baffling. Like, if they're willing to bring Ricciardo back into the fold, surely Sainz is the man you go to.
Is there another reason at play why Ferrari let him go? Is there another reason at play?
Yeah, and that's just
why
Hamilton.
Red Bull don't want
it. It's
him?
just Hamilton. I'm with you though. I mean, I can somewhat understand the Mercedes position simply because he's come from the Red Bull family.
Yeah.
I wonder whether Max and Sainz... Max isn't a Sainz person. I wonder whether there's a threat that is known around that Sainz matches up well against Verstappen in his machinery.
Yep.
Because when they last raced together, Sainz was pretty good, but Max was a bloody young rookie at that point in time. Like, Sainz wasn't old by any stretch of imagination, but yeah, so like he had his measure at the very, very start, Sainz. Yep. And so that's always been a bit of a claim to him, but geez, Max was very raw at the start. So I wonder whether Max has just vetoed the fact that he can come back in, because he makes the most sense. He's an old Red Bull driver, bring him back in the fold, take the second seat, you're the informed driver.
Yeah.
He's, for me, seems like the most logical choice, but it's like it's never been an option.
Yep.
And then for the Mercedes, maybe it's the fact that, well, we're trying to bring Max Verstappen over, and by all reports aren't that far off making this happen.
Yeah, so this is the real run and dump seat, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's like, if we're going to bring Max over, we can't have Sainz sitting in that seat, although, mind you, I guess he's going to replace him anyway. But yeah, so I wonder whether there is a Max... I know nothing of it. This is a complete guess, but that's just a theory of, maybe is that it? It's just a strange one, isn't it? For Williams, what a pickup. Like, they've got
just
Alex
a free
Albon.
Kick, isn't it?
They've got Alex Albon and they've got Carlos Sainz now leading that team. I tell you, that gives me huge confidence in that team that they're going to be able to pull off something now. James Vowles, there is lots of talk about still kicking around that Adrian Newey is still got some serious interest in Williams, which I don't know whether that's just being floated to try and attract Sainz in. You know how teams will do that? If you're like, oh, well, have you heard the news?
It sounded a lot like Aston's the front runner.
It sounds like Aston could be the front runner, but then we've heard that he would never want to work for Aston in the past. And so, I wonder whether there's, I don't know. It would be, if Adrian Newey could go to that team, and they've got these two drivers, and they got James Vowles in charge, and they've brought in a whole bunch of other people, maybe that team has a future. And it inspires me about where they might be able to go.
Right.
So, I think that they've been made to look worse with Sargent there, so maybe it's the kick they're going to need. So, interesting. Were you shocked?
Nah, as I said, it was a very
because he was going to be signed there a few weeks ago, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
But it was before Barcelona.
And then to take,
and it went
it's
quiet.
It's more. We took this long to just choose Williams, which you probably could have just chosen week one. Like, we waited and we waited and we waited, and then it was like, ooh, like if we had been sitting here saying Sainz to Mercedes, then you'd be like, wow, awesome, great call, made the right choice, waiting, hanging it out. We waited this long, and this much talk for Williams.
But I guess he waited out to see if any of those were going to come true, and at the same time, he was working out the best of his bad options.
Yeah.
And so I can understand. I
don't know. I don't expect him to be there long.
Yes,
I really don't.
And you somewhat expect some get out clauses.
He would have filled that contract with as many get out clauses as possible. Like, honestly, I expect to see him move again by 2026.
In my opinion, I think he will stay there for a long time.
I think he will too, but I tell you what, I bet he doesn't want to be there.
It's almost like the graveyard shift,
it's...
I mean, it'd be one. It's one I'm really interested in.
So we've got left now.
Yes.
For all intensive purposes, Dan has signed with RB.
Well, no. Next year.
I reckon.
Do you think so?
The news in the last couple of hours is that he's staying. So you know what happens?
No, the news in the last couple of hours is that he's staying for the rest of the season, not next season.
I reckon he'll stay for next season too. Honestly, if he's staying now, then he stays for next season.
Oh no, I'm not. I'm nowhere near that one.
Oh, I am. So for me, RB's filled and it's Dan. All right. So really, we've got 3 seats left. All right. So let's just do what we always do: seat, driver. All right.
Go.
All right. Sauber. Audi. Kickstake. Sorry, I'll say Sauber.
No idea.
Just pick someone.
Can we start with a different one? Can we start with it? That one's thrown me.
Alpine
is Jack.
Yeah, Doohan.
Jack Doohan is and that the part of this is like, good, this is now Jack's seat. Yeah. Because they were in the hunt for Sainz, which is going to cause problems.
Jack, 3 Aussies on the grid. Awesome. Awesome.
Okay.
All right, well, RB. Who's RB?
Lawson.
Dan.
Yeah, possibly, but no, I think all of this now really clouds Dan's position in Formula One.
Yep.
If they're not replacing him now...
Yep.
Oh, man, it's interesting. But, I mean, next year, is it they just want to continue to see him build for next year?
Yep.
So, for me, Dan's either in a Red Bull...
Yep.
Or for next year, or he's in probably the Audi.
All right.
Next year.
All right. Well, Sauber then, Audi?
If Dan's not in the Red Bull, it's Dan.
Yep.
Otherwise, what's a more likely choice? Jeez, I don't know. I honestly don't know.
What about...
Oh, yeah. I'm interested.
What about...
I haven't thought about this, actually. Yeah.
K-Mag.
What a shocking
What about
choice.
K-Mag?
What a shocking choice.
What about just...
Picking up the Haas
We're
boys.
starting new. Let's get to... What about K-Mag? Maybe.
Oh, no.
Maybe.
No.
Who's your Merc driver?
It looks like it's going to be Kimi Antonelli now.
Valtteri.
You've been on this. You've been on this.
I'll let it go when I'm wrong.
Okay.
It's not going to be Kimi.
Well, we can load them up this year.
If they want Max in 12 months' time, you cannot afford to sign anyone that he's going to want long in the 12 months. This is, as I said, this is a dump and run. You can't grab Kimi for 12 months. What a pointless exercise.
The benefit of what you're talking about is that Kimi Antonelli can definitely do another season of F2.
Of course he can.
Because he hasn't produced anything.
All right, so that's it. What a pointless experiment to pull. If you're that, dead set on Antonelli, to pull him from F2, put him in Mercedes, and then dump him in 12 months' time, what's the point of doing that? That's pointless. Pointless exercise. So that's why, for me, it's not Kimi Antonelli. But Valtteri will come in. Valtteri will do 12 months for you, and then he'll find something else, or he'll just teeter off into the distance.
Interesting.
But Valtteri will do that for you. K-Mag will do 12 months for you. K-Mag will do 12 months.
What, in a Mercedes?
Toto will tap K-Mag on the shoulder and say, do 12 months for me, knowing that I am going to dump you. That's all Mercedes need. They want George and Max, so you need someone to drive for 12 months. It's a part-time shift, is what it is at Mercedes.
Yeah, you make an interesting point. You make a really interesting point. What on earth do you do if you've actually turned Max's head, but you can't get him this
That's
season?
right, and you got a spare seat. Just someone fills it for 12 months.
You make a good point.
And that's it.
I don't mind that point.
And it's just, and then you're gone.
But I tell you what, if Magnussen is driving for Mercedes...
It's not silly.
I could swallow Bottas, maybe. I wonder whether Bottas just still got it in him, though.
Bottas go to Sauber. I don't think he has to have it in him because Toto's his manager. So he can just
No, but like, he's gone to the... I'm switched off, I'm relaxed Bottas, I'm an Australian Bottas.
Yep.
Can he turn back into the Finnish Bottas?
Toto will pull him out. Yeah. He'll pull him out of Sauber and say, come here for 12 months, like he put him in it.
I guess it depends on how much confidence they got in being able to pull Max over, doesn't it? Because I'm with you. That's the only reason
why. If you don't, if you know you're not getting Max, but you can't run the risk of locking that seat away for 2 to 3 years.
Is that part of the reason why Perez holds his seat?
Maybe.
And Ricciardo holds his seat because they are shit scared that they're going to lose Max.
You've got to have backup for Max, don't you?
Is that the problem?
You can't.
They're going to have to make a choice between some drivers because they're likely to be losing their A-grade drivers, so they're going to need to keep Ricciardo on
Well, you can't
side.
keep
Perez on side. Well,
lose Max.
It would still be a much better option to put in Yuki
and then be left with Yuki and Lawson to drive RBs.
Well, you can be.
And then untried, like, you know, with Hadjar in there as well, wouldn't you? But I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting.
That's the big
it certainly hasn't
point,
answered.
Isn't it?
It certainly hasn't answered questions, has it? It's only answered the science question, which turned out to be a real no
don't
question.
Don't discard K-Mag as one of these seats. Don't.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to discard him because he is the skilled driver within all of this. Is there anywhere for Mick Schumacher to come back into Formula One? His name pops up a little bit.
It's not a bad one if you want that 12 months. You want that 12 months.
He's a reserve driver.
Yep, just put him in for 12 months and let him have a run around knowing he's going back to the... he's going back there.
Any other news?
I think that's the key takeaway of the news, isn't it? Yeah, drive away, absolutely.
Okay. All right, wonderful. Enjoy your summer break. We will have a fan frenzy coming out after this episode as well. However, what's our plans for the summer break?
Well, it's winter here, so...
I feel like we need to do some sort of...
Nothing summery.
Fan episode.
Okay.
We promise this every year, and then we
do
find our way back into the. Oh, hang on! Look, the season's upon us again. But we'll see how we're travelling. But we'll see how we go. But enjoy a little bit of time off. It's horrible. What are you planning on getting into? The Olympics?
No, I'm not a big Olympic person.
Okay. But until then. We'll speak and keep an eye out for Fan Frenzy. Goodbye now.